Ready or not, summer is coming, and Wayfair's Memorial Day clearance is on now. Right now through May 25th, get up to 70% off everything home at Wayfair. Plus, score amazing doorbuster deals all sale long and surprise flash deals on Memorial Day. We're talking thousands of products at every style and budget. Now is the time to save big on must-haves for your patio, backyard, and beyond. These savings won't last, so don't wait. Shop Wayfair's Memorial Day clearance now through May 25th.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome in on a Tuesday morning. A couple more NBA playoff games, lessons to be learned. You know, we talked on Friday about going from good to great and how hard that is to do and how do you accomplish that. Pablo Mastroeni always talks about that. We had him on Friday. And we're just seeing examples of this over and over in the playoffs. And the Lakers are good. You win 50 games in the West. It's the better conference. You know, they're in the top quarter of the league. Having said that, I don't think any of us thought they were anywhere near a championship team. LeBron said that during the year. Somewhat controversial. I think he was just saying the truth as he saw it. And certainly without Doncic, they're not there. But even with him, I don't think they're there. Now, having said that, down 3-0 against the Thunder with really no hope to come back and win 4 in a row. Nobody's ever done that in the NBA, and certainly a team is overmatched as the Lakers. A team is shorthanded as the Lakers isn't going to do it. But nonetheless, I thought they gave a good effort. They played a good game. They scored, and they took the lead with 40 seconds left. And in the last 40 seconds, Thunder did what champions do. Bucket, stop, bucket, stop. It's dominated. They won every possession in the last 40 seconds of the game. The Lakers didn't score again. The Thunder finished on a 6-0 run. There it is. Lakers were down 111-110, had a chance to score and take the lead, couldn't do it. They were down 113-110. They actually got a decent look at 3 to tie the game. It didn't go. And there you go. The Lakers get swept. They're all done. The Thunder are now a perfect 8-0 in the postseason and back in the Western Conference Final, waiting for the winner of that San Antonio-Minnesota series. Really impressive by the Thunder. And they got guys who are not in the top 10 in their payroll, or actually I think 14th and 15th, scoring big buckets late in the game. They got a lot of guys who contribute. They got a lot of guys who can play at a high level. It's really impressive to see how good they are. And as the salary cap inevitably forces them to pull this team apart, because you can't pay everybody. They just won't allow it, not under the current rules. You know, what decisions will they make, who will go, and how much can the guys who are left still hold it together? Because it looks like they're steamrolling towards the second title. Now, maybe San Antonio or Minnesota can get them. Maybe the Knicks can get them. The Knicks look good over in the East, but I don't really believe that. I mean, I have to acknowledge maybe it could happen. We've seen a ton of injuries here in the playoffs. Maybe they'll be gutted. Crazier things have happened. I thought the Warriors were going to beat Toronto, and they got gutted by multiple massive injuries. And they ended up losing that series. So, you know, stuff happens. You haven't won it till you won it, and they've got to win 8 more games. And the next 8 should be harder than the first 8. I don't think they're going to go 16-0. Scotty did come on and say they're going to do it in 19 and a half games, and I still think they're going to lose 4 or 5 games. But they didn't lose any here. I thought this was a chance to lose 1 and get 1 under the belt, so not yet. And the other series, man, Detroit and Cleveland. Good teams, not great teams. That series is tied 2-2. The home teams won every game. Detroit won 2, then Cleveland won 2. And that's the way the previous series went. Cleveland won that in 7, and the home team won every game. It's bizarre that we are 11 games deep, and the home team has won every playoff game that Cleveland has played. Let that sink in. That is bizarre, odd. And I think it's just a sign of a team that depends on role players, and, you know, role players are better at home. They just are. And maybe their star players are really role players kind of, you know, dressed up. They've had some guys who, they're starters, and they disappear at times in these playoffs. So we'll see how it plays out for them. I suspect not well. The Knicks, it's good to have time off. I wonder if the Knicks are going to have too much. It's good to have time off. I wonder if the Thunder will have too much. I think the Thunder are so good they'll overcome it. But for those of us of a certain age, we remember when the Jazz had 10 days off before they played the Bulls. Yeah, that wasn't great. The Jazz swept the Lakers in the Western Finals. The Bulls and Pacers went 7, and the Jazz series started first. And then they held it for a couple more days because they had a final schedule all set. It was Yeah, it was not good for the Jazz. I'll just leave it at that. It was not good. So we'll see if that hurts either the Knicks or Thunder, because it looks like they could get a lot of rest. You like to have some. You don't really want a full week off. We'll see how it plays out, though. So there's the NBA playoff action last night. The NHL action, all right, Colorado's not perfect, but they're pretty good. They beat Minnesota 5-2, a game that was a defensive struggle for 2 periods. Both teams had a power play goal in the first 2 periods. So it was 1-1 going to the third, and it ends up 5-2. And Colorado did have a couple of empty netters there in the last minute. They scored twice in the empty net. But, man, those other 3 goals, they just those were all full strength. And, back and forth they win. Colorado can beat you with defense. Colorado can beat you by outscoring. Another 5-goal game. They've scored 5 goals or more in all 3 of their wins, including that crazy 9-6 game in the opener in this series. So it's just a measure of how far the Mammoth have to go. And, maybe some of the top teams come back to you a little bit, but somebody else will probably catch fire too. So a lot of work for the Mammoth to do, and you can watch this and just think, yeah, Colorado's now, what are they now, 7-1 in the playoffs? They're 3-1 in this series after winning their opener over the Kings in 4 straight. So this is an impressive, and it's just them and Carolina, it looks like, on track to meet in the Stanley Cup final. We'll see if anything can derail that. I kind of doubt it. They're up 3-1 on the Wild now. And that other series, that Anaheim-Vegas series, is 2-2. And I think that Colorado should close out Minnesota now and then should be a gigantic favorite. Just absolutely ginormous against whoever they face in the conference final. So I expect it'll be there's better depth in the East. I expect it's going to be Colorado and Carolina, but I guess there's maybe a little more of a chance Carolina facing some better competition will have a different experience maybe. We'll see how that goes. 2 games tonight, Sabres and Canadiens at 5, and then the Ducks and the Golden Knights at 7:30. And those games are both on ESPN tonight. So there you go. As far as the NBA tonight, it's just 1 game. Timberwolves and Spurs are on NBC at 6 o'clock tonight, with that series tied 2-2, and they're back in San Antonio. And they did not suspend Victor Wembanyama. They kicked him out and decided that was enough. So no fine either. No fine, no suspension. He's back. He threw an elbow, so let that be a lesson to anybody else. They'll kick you out, but they won't suspend you and fine you. Or there's a different set of rules for Victor Wembanyama. That is the other possibility out there. All right, we got more NBA hoops coming up for you later this morning. Stay with us here in the show. Kristen Peek's going to join us from NBA.com. We'll be going through some NBA reporters here, seeing their takes on how they think this is all going to shake out. The mock drafts are set. We kind of know how people see these guys, but it's not a big margin, and everybody may see it a little different, especially as they interview the guys, talk to them, meet them, do all their deep dives and that now that they know where they're drafting and how things stack up. Be interesting to see. We'll talk with Kristen come up. Also, our spring football tour continues this morning. So plenty on tap for you, and Bob Casper will join us for the PGA Championship draft. And Scotty Scheffler is the favorite. Again, big surprise. Rory McIlroy is the second best odds. No surprise. So you got Scheffler, who won the PGA a year ago, seeing if he can defend. You got McIlroy, who already won the Masters, so even get halfway to a Grand Slam. And then Cameron Young, who's won on tour 3 times already. And then 2 guys off the LIV Tour, John Rahm, Bryson DeChambeau, the next odds. DeChambeau is actually tied with Xander Schauffele. So it is the usual names at the top here of the at the top of the list in the PGA Championship. We'll talk with Bob Casper coming up this morning. All of that on tap, so plenty to get to, and more, of course, on your Utah Jazz. There was a little bit of NFL news we'll get to. The Dallas Cowboys are going to open the season against the Giants, take advantage of the hype around Harbaugh. Don't leave that game for too late in the season in case the Giants are bad. And I think the Giants have a chance to be a big-time turnaround team. I don't think there's a great team at the top of the division. I think that with Harbaugh showing up, we saw what happened when his brother went to the Chargers. We saw what happened with Denver and with Kansas City. When successful veteran coaches were on the market, proven winners, they went somewhere and they turned them around. Now, obviously, Andy Reid won bigger and, he is a better quarterback and all that. But They've all done it. And so it'll be interesting to see if they can do it. Now, with Jackson Dart, the former Corner Canyon Charger, the reason to play game one is he going to stay healthy? Is he going to stay out of the blue tent? Because he runs around and throws his body around, and people say brave things. This is the way I play the game. Okay. I just remember seeing Robert Griffin III upside down with his leg whipping around in the air, tearing his ACL. Don't get hit. You can run around. Don't get hit. Caleb Williams is doing a pretty good job. Aaron Rodgers always did a pretty good job of not taking the big hits. Heck, Mahomes does it for that matter. He'll run around. You can run around, but you got to protect yourself from the big hits. You got to know where everybody is. Get down, first down, touchdown. Those are your options. Well, I guess it's touchdown, first down, get down, but you get the deal. And then the Cowboys will play the Eagles on Thanksgiving Day. So a couple of names announced. This stuff slowly leaking out. They let all the TV partners have, all the business partners get a chance to leak a little bit of the news, and then the full schedule will be out on Thursday for all of you who love the NFL. All right, DJ and PK, we are going to take a break. Stay with us. Coming up, Steve Cleveland next, and we will talk NBA Draft Lottery with him. That's on the way. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
If the world were like a Sleep Number mattress, everything would adapt for your comfort. Because as your life changes and your body changes, Sleep Number mattresses adapt and shift to give you personalized comfort night after night. And now everything's on sale during our Memorial Day event. Save up to $1,200 on mattresses for a limited time. To experience a whole new world of comfort, visit a Sleep Number store or go to sleepnumber.com. Sleep Number, to a good life sleep.
Make game day yours. Tickets, food and drinks, stats, and streaming. Everything you need is in the Utah Mammoth app. Download today and make game night easy. Download on both Android and iPhone. Just top.
Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Steve Cleveland joined us yesterday, as he does every Monday, to talk about that NBA Draft Lottery, the Jazz drafting second. What are they going to do now? How badly do they want A.J. DeBonsa? Here's Steve Cleveland with PK and I. Steve, good morning.
Good morning, fellas.
And it is a good morning for Jazz fans. A number 2 pick. Can you believe it? They finally moved up.
Yes, that is exciting, and I think everybody in Utah is probably pretty happy about that. So hopefully that turns into being something that can be pretty special. So I'm not sure we're going to talk a little bit more about the draft.
You have to get this right from the Jazz perspective. Austin Ainge is in charge. You know him well. You recruited him. He's got to get it right. And I think that, as I relate it to your situation, when you came into Provo, there were certain guys you had to get, right? You had to get McKelly Wesley. You had to get Mark Bigelow. You had to get Lee Camard. And you did get those guys, right? And they were foundation pieces to building a program and getting it back to where you wanted and everybody wanted it to be. When it's something that you have to get it right and you're trying to analyze and get all the information with people that you need to talk to and all that, how do you go about that from like Austin Ainge's perspective to make sure that they get the very best player that they can get into this town and be a part of this franchise going forward?
Well, you said it. I think first and foremost, just getting that pick is huge, and now taking your time, not being in a hurry, and I don't know exactly how this is going to play out in my mind. I mean, obviously, we're going to get a really good player here, but are there going to be trades involved? Are there going to be what are the circumstances that we're looking at here going forward? But you do have to get it right. And Austin has been prepared for this for a long time. 20-plus years in Boston, and here he is now with the Jazz. And obviously Danny's been involved with this for a long time. So I have a great deal of confidence. These are guys that have been doing this for a long time. And I'm quite confident that this will be a real positive step forward. And we've got great people making those decisions.
I heard this story about Steve Fisher once, that he was a San Diego State and Michigan, basketball coach. So he was this great guy, and he knew the name of everybody who worked in the front office of whatever school, whatever receptionist, secretary, whoever was right there. He knew them all by name. He's such a good guy. And I thought, Well, yeah, he's pumping them all for information on kids. And I wonder if you could explain to us, maybe he is a great guy, but he was still pumping them for information on kids. And I wonder if you could explain to us when you're doing background on a player to find out who they are as a person. And if the Jazz are drafting somebody for the next 7, 10, 12 years, that's going to be really important. How many people do you talk to? Where do you go? Where over time, where did you find great information in unusual places talking to people? Because obviously the Jazz have to do a deep dive on several guys now.
That's true. You know, I think in my experiences in recruiting and, you know, whether it's the NBA or, you know, college basketball, I think the way I approached it first and foremost was getting into the home of a player or a recruit and getting to know the parents, getting to know the coaches, the high school coaches, the junior college coaches, you know, whoever it might be involved. But I think for me, it was making sure that they felt comfortable with me and I felt comfortable with them. And I think that when I look at college, you know, the college players that we were recruiting, we did get into the home. We did go and meet with the high school coach, the junior college coach. We took the time to kind of become part of their family. And I think having a family-oriented approach to this is where we found our success. Because you know you have the statistics, you know how they've played and how they've performed, but long-term success in recruiting, whether it's in college or the NBA, really comes down to family, comes down to people that you trust and that they trust you and you trust them. And then the one thing that we do have here with Austin and Danny in the past, that we have a relationship here with this state. And it's so important that people understand and players understand the importance of family, the importance of having I guess the best word is just a trust. And when I was recruiting and I went into homes, I wanted them to trust me. I wanted them to know that we're going to do what's best for the young man in our program, but we're going to do what's best for him going forward. And when you have that trust and you have that family atmosphere, you are more confident. You're more confident. And I think when I went into homes and I talked to players and I talked to their parents and I talked to their coaches and had that relationship, I felt more confident in hopefully getting that individual to be a part of our program, but also to know that this is more than just basketball. This is about really having relationships. And everything that I did and have done in life, you know, not just in coaching, but in life, that the successes that we have found, and I'm sure this is true for you guys, when you've been successful, it's because you have those relationships. And so for me, you're right. Going forward here, there's a lot going on, but to have the opportunity right now to develop that relationship, to put yourself in a position where there's a trust and getting the very best player that you can get, that's the foundation to moving forward and continuing to not only drafting, but developing relationships and going forward with coaches and coaching staffs.
Obviously, A.J. DeBonce is right there to be had. I think the Jazz, if they want him, they can get him. They can make enough moves. A.J. could float around to the Washington people that, hey, I really want to be in Utah, which would be quite a surprise given all the stuff that we've heard about Utah. But nevertheless, he's here and he's been comfortable here and his parents and all that. And that'd be great. The knock on him is that, you know, he's not a great distance shooter, right? He's not a great perimeter three-point shooter. Now, he's only 19 years old, so I'm not going to put a limit on him. From your perspective, you know, he's got everything that he needs to do to be successful. If he can improve his outside shot, wow, he'd really be quite the bundle and difficult to handle. How do you get better at shooting? I think that's the bottom line that he needs to do to work on that. He needs to work on everything, but if he can improve himself and get to like 35% as a three-point shooter, he's really got something. So how do you do that?
You know, I think, first of all, he has a skill set to start with that is really unique. And we've all watched him play, and I've watched him practice. And I think the first thing that just kind of jumps out at me is his ability to get into the paint and get into areas that he can take mid-range shots. There's a lot, there's a lot of pro players that don't shoot mid-range shots, and they're not comfortable with that. Well, AJ already has solidified the fact that he can get into the key, he can get into the baseline, he can take those shots that are difficult and he has the ability to put himself in positions because of his explosiveness and because of his great shooting ability in the mid-range. I think that a lot of guys struggle with that, and it's just the three. And whereas there's lots of different ways to score. So let's go back to that now. I think he is an accomplished shooter. He's an accomplished scorer. Where is he at in terms of three-point shooting? Well, number one, it's a different college is different than the NBA, and those adjustments will have to be made. But there is nothing in my soul that tells me that he can't be a good three-point shooter. And he already has so many different ways to attack the rim and attack the defenders that he's as good as anybody that I've seen coming out of college, to be honest with you. I mean, he's just really talented that way. Does he become a better three-point shooter over time? Absolutely. I mean, that's what they do for a living full time. So I have complete confidence that AJ will be able to take his game to the next level and be able to stretch defenses. And once they stretch those defenses with his ability to shoot three, it makes him that much better. So I just believe that the time will be spent. There's going to be a lot of help and support. And if we can get AJ here and in Utah, and it'll just change the environment of this community. And I'm confident in him. I'm confident that he can become a good three-point shooter. But you're right, it takes a lot of time. You got to spend time. He'll have coaches. He'll have support groups. He'll have everything he needs to continue to improve that three-point shooting. But there's nothing in me that says that he won't be a good or a great three-point shooter. I just believe that will happen over time, and that just makes him that much more dangerous and challenging to guard.
Darren Peterson came out over the weekend and said that creatine caused cramping. That's why he missed so many games. When you heard that, did that have the ring of authenticity? You doubt that story? How did that sit with you when you heard it?
That is a difficult one for being authentic and what's going on. And, the fact that there were multiple games that he didn't play, and I have no idea what was going on there, so I'm not casting any judgment on the young man, but it was just odd that there were times when he just didn't show up or he just didn't play, and so yes, is he a talent? Absolutely. Can he become an NBA superstar? Yes. Answer to all this, because he is skilled. But I think one is he's got to get his body and he's got to get that strength that he needs to become a better player. But yeah, the creatine and all of that, wherever he ends up going, I'm sure that the staffs and whatever organization is going to handle this young man, I think those things will be addressed. He is a talent, and I would hope that we'll see some growth and some development. It's going to be a full-time job for him. Those things do make you a little bit nervous, but there's a lot of money invested in these young men, and I'm not down on him. I was disappointed at times during the season that he didn't really have a complete commitment to what was happening. I'm sure that whatever program and whatever organization drafts him and gets him involved, I think they'll address those things. He is a talent. And he'll have to grow and develop, but I wouldn't give up on that young man. He's got too many skills, he's got too much size, too much length to not be a really good pro.
What's the number one thing you look for in talent?
Let me think about that for a moment. I think the thing that jumps out at me, number one, with talent is that as you're recruiting talent or as you're coaching talent, that there is, I'll go back to relationships and the importance of becoming a better player and becoming a more consistent player. And that was some of the things that troubled me watching him with being consistent. But I think with most young people and the people that I've coached, first and foremost was relationships. Second was making sure that day in and day out, that they were working on getting better and putting themselves in a position where they could be difference makers. And so I don't know that I have a perfect answer for that, but I will just say this, that the talent's there. I think the desire and the grit and the heart about it will develop over time, and he'll be a pretty special player.
So when Austin tells you what they're going to do, you tell us, and then we'll just all keep it on the down low, okay?
Yeah, I'm telling you right now. I saw Danny the other day. In fact, I was over at Riverside, and I chatted with him just for a minute, and they all seem to be in quite good spirits. And we will have opportunities to talk to Austin and kind of see where things are. I'm hoping to get up there sooner than later. And just kind of right now, it's kind of a crazy busy time. But that is a group of an organization right now that is pretty excited about the future.
Yeah, there's no question about that. I had it turns out, I would say the privilege, at the time it was the opportunity. I knew Austin was going to be a basketball lifer one way or the other. I mean, I could tell right from his freshman year. I was the beat writer, as you know, during his entire time there. And there's a lot of dead time after games and before games or in the locker rooms and airports and whatnot. And so we'd talk basketball. And he would question what you would do to me, or me he would question, well, what do you think? He did this, he did that, So he approached the game from an analytical mindset, a strategic mindset, but he just had the ability to really judge talent, I thought, because we would talk about it. So you talk about how you have confidence in him. I totally have confidence in him because I believe that he just has the mindset to develop talent, and something that it's a skill, but I can't really define it. And so that's why I have this confidence. And I'm wondering, as you dealt with him, what gave you that level of confidence that you have, like I do, like we both do, that they're going to make the right call?
Well, I've said this before, and I think that, coaching young men, every player wants to play. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's nobody that doesn't want to play and doesn't feel like they should be playing more. That's just the nature of it. And coaches have to make decisions, and players, you develop relationships, and it's always difficult when maybe you'd like to be playing more minutes or doing this more or whatever the circumstances were. The one thing with Austin was that we had many conversations, and listen, what great players don't want to play.
Yeah.
And there weren't as many opportunities for him in that situation and circumstance. It didn't mean that he couldn't play. He was. You don't become part of a collegiate basketball team without having skills and sets and all the things that you're capable of doing. But the one thing about Austin is that he just looked at the game differently than most 18, 19, 20-year-old guys. And he was thinking way beyond what was just happening at BYU.
Right.
And I think you guys have both seen that. And that's what I saw in him. And obviously he's 20 years in Boston. He's now here with the Jazz. And the door's wide open to do special things. And we'll see how it plays out. But I have absolute confidence in him and in his mindset, his ability to organize, his ability to bring people together, all the things that are necessary to develop a culture and develop an organization long term that can create something really special here in Utah. So I would never, ever second guess him. And I haven't had a chance to get to him and spend time with him. He's so busy in doing things. But as a player, he's skilled, but even more so as a coach, just understood the game and understood the value of togetherness and unity and getting together and finding the best and making the best and the most out of players. And so he's in the right spot I can't wait to see him and where he takes this program and what happens. And I do look forward to getting together with him at some point in time as things settle down. But I love him. I love his family, and this is their community, and this is their opportunity to make something really special happen here. It's not going to be easy, but he's the guy qualified to do it.
Steve, we appreciate it. As always, thanks for joining us. And as you take a deep dive on all these top players in this draft, we'll talk to you again going forward.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks. Have a good one.
There's Steve Cleveland. Hey, a reminder, coming up May 14th, Beehive Meals opens their new production facility in Ogden. Tune in as Scotty and the coach broadcast live, cover the grand opening and bringing the energy. When we come back, Kevin Reynolds from the Salt Lake Tribune. He's been covering A.J. DeBonsa for a couple of years on different beats for the Trib, and now he's on the Jazz beat. He was in New York in the locked room with Austin Ainge, got to talk to him when those guys weren't allowed to go talk to anybody else. He's coming up next. Stay with us.
If the world were like a Sleep Number mattress, everything would adapt for your comfort. Because as your life changes and your body changes, Sleep Number mattresses adapt and shift to give you personalized comfort night after night. And now everything's on sale during our Memorial Day event. Save up to $1,200 on mattresses for a limited time. To experience a whole new world of comfort, visit a Sleep Number store or go to sleepnumber.com. Sleep Number, to a good life sleep.
DJ and PK, good Tuesday morning to you. Kevin Reynolds joined us yesterday. Writes for the Salt Lake Tribune. He's had multiple jobs as he's basically been on the A.J. DeBonsa beat, and he's going to be on it for a few more weeks. Then we'll see who drafts DeBonsa. Here's Kevin Reynolds with PK and I on the Zone. Kevin, good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Good. Thanks for coming on the air. We appreciate it. And I will say that you're the Jazz beat writer now. You used to be the BYU beat writer. Has it struck you how odd it is that you really have a front row seat to the A.J. DeBonsa show?
Yeah, I just keep following around, I feel like, at this point. I mean, also went down to Utah Prep his high school year. So, it's been basically 3 years of this at this point.
Kevin Reynolds, stalker.
Yeah, and so you were back there. What was it like? Take us inside as to how the things worked.
Yeah, well, really anticlimactic. I mean, I know on the show they go from 14-1, and they also take the break where you didn't know if the Jazz were going to get, 1 through 4. But there, it's just they start 1 through 14, and it takes about like 5 minutes. So it's really there's no anticipation. It just went Washington Wizards. You knew that within a minute, and then the Jazz were next, and you knew that within 30 seconds of the Wizards. So, I mean, in that sense, it was quick, and really there was just, you took the note and then that was it, that the Jazz were going to go number 2, and then you go talk to Austin Ainge about what he's going to do. But the really interesting part about that room was, for a team that has never had any draft lottery luck with their own pick, basically won the lottery twice because the Jazz get the second pick and then they draw the lottery balls again for the third pick, and the Jazz won it again. And so they had to redraw, obviously give it to Memphis. And, Austin Ainge was so excited, I feel like, in that room that really nobody has any reactions to. I mean, Washington won the first pick, and I do not think there was even a smile from Washington's side. But Austin, had an audible yes, was fist pumping in the air when the Jazz won, and even reached over to Memphis's GM and gave him a fist bump when they won the third pick. So I think there was a lot of excitement for the Jazz because finally, something goes right in that room for them. And also now they have a ton of options for the future for the next, 10 years for what they actually want to do.
So you're in the room. So you had to give up your phone, right? Because they want this super secret. And then they keep you in the room for how long after this? Because they want the show to be a surprise.
Yeah, it's like an hour and a half because the actual drawing happens at 1 local, but the television show doesn't happen until 2, and obviously the television show takes forever till like 2:30 to actually announce all the picks. So you're really just in there, and the actual drawing takes 5 minutes. So for the next like hour and 25 minutes, you're just standing around, and all the people who are representatives, whether they're GMs, whether they're whoever they sent, whoever the team sent, they're just kind of mingling about. So for the teams that didn't win anything, obviously they're explaining away what happened or, trying to make sense of it themselves. And then for a guy like Austin Ainge, he's in there, just kind of his first reaction, his authentic reaction to what they're going to do at number 2. So it's a really long time to just be sitting there waiting for something to happen or just to leave with no phone, no anything, and really no contact with the outside world.
So you saw him be excited. Did you see others be disappointed?
He was really the only one who had a reaction. I mean, it wasn't like there was some big reaction for the Pacers. It wasn't like really anything like that. I didn't really, even Washington did have a reaction, which is also what made the Austin, the Austin fist pump, I think, so interesting because and also this was his first time in the room.
Yeah.
The Jazz have sent the one funny story I think from Austin that he told us was that he went around, and since he's only been on the job for less than a year, he was like, who wants to do this? Who wants to go and be the representative? And pretty much everybody else on the Jazz has been the representative, and it's been a failure. Ryan Smith, Justin Zanuck, Danny Ainge, his own father, he talked about that. And so for him, I thought the reaction was so genuine to actually winning the lottery for a team and a franchise that has been so disappointed, losing so much over the last 4 years and have so many battle scars at this event. But yeah, it wasn't like there was a huge sigh or, anything like that for teams that it didn't go well in. Definitely a very different feeling than you see on the actual television show. And I think people do have authentic reactions to not winning.
Well, I wouldn't have blamed the Pacers if they had a negative reaction because that was bad. I wouldn't have blamed the Kings either. It wasn't as bad as the Pacers, but those two definitely had bad luck in the draft lottery. I'm curious, with another 85 minutes to kill in the room, did you get to talk to Austin much? And if so, what did he have to say?
Yeah, no, definitely talked to him for, probably 20 minutes, honestly, just because what else are you going to do?
Right.
And so, but the interesting part for me was that he didn't rule out almost anything on the table. I mean, even A.J. Debonza, who obviously I would imagine it will be the number 1 pick, but, he had the quote to us saying essentially he doesn't think Washington has made up their minds and they haven't made up their minds. So, anything is really on the table for this pick. And he's not looking at it. I mean, I know there's an opportunity here, and everybody in Salt Lake believes that this is a playoff team next year, or at least will push for the playoffs next year on some level after you made the Jaren Jackson trade, and you have Larry Marketing, Keontae George, Ace Bailey. But he doesn't look at this pick, or at least this is what he said yesterday. He doesn't look at this pick as adding to a playoff team or, filling a hole or a need in this playoff roster for the next 5 years. He looks at this pick as a kind of a 10-year investment, and hopefully this player becomes either the best player or one of the best players that the Jazz have on this team for the next 10 years, and maybe can, be a guy who could carry a franchise himself the day after, Lowry Marketing and Jaren Jackson and kind of this phase and this iteration of the Jazz either makes a deep playoff run or, whatever happens with this thing. So, I think those are the skill sets he's looking at. The other interesting part, talking to him, is that this decision I don't think is going to be made about just a body of work of college. Where Darren Peterson, obviously a lot of people have him going number 2. We've talked a lot about the cramping issue and him sitting out of games. We've seen it front row with him playing half a game against AJ and BYU, was really good, then sits the last 16, 20 of that game. But, this decision I think is going to be made, it's going to go beyond just 6 weeks of him sitting out of games. I think it's going to be going back to his days at Prolific Prep, where a lot of people had him as, potentially the number 1 pick. So I think there's going to be a lot of phone calls to, Chapel Hill and Lawrence and Durham, but also Provo too, because I don't think they've ruled out necessarily that AJ could be a Utah Jazz player in some capacity, depending on what Washington wants to do.
Yeah, and we've had the opportunity, and it's been fun to follow AJ up close at games and all that stuff and see what he's about. He seems like a solid kid. The family's involved. and it seems like, they enjoy it out here. You could speak to it because you've had a front row opportunity to speak to all those people about how much, and it's unusual. We used to hear, well, people don't want to come to Utah. AJ and his family came, and they seem to like it. It doesn't seem like it's that difficult for them just to tweak it a little bit by telling Washington, hey, this is really where we want to go. Go ahead and make a deal here. Do you think that, or what do you think their feeling is as far as the opportunity to stay in Utah if that's what they want? Not necessarily what the Jazz want, but that they want.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't talked to them in the last 24 hours or really about the specific idea of them going to the Jazz and AJ playing for the Jazz. But overall, I think he is a rare prospect, to your point, that has spent a lot of time in Utah. 2 years is a lot of time. He's been at both levels in Utah. They chose to come to Utah in Utah prep and really took a huge gamble there. So, I mean, he does understand Utah, and I think he's liked his experience with Kevin Young. But the other part that I go back to is AJ has also really wanted to be the number one pick, and he said that he's wanted to be the number one pick basically since I've known him, since he was a high schooler. And the Washington Wizards have the number one pick. Now, what happens after that? I don't really know whether that means does he like Utah enough to try to get himself to Utah? I really don't know that answer, but I mean, the two things that I think AJ's been very consistent on since he's been here in college is that he wants to play in the NBA, but he also really feels like he deserves and wants to be the number one pick. Even when he was going to Kansas and played Derek Peterson, and it looked at that time like he maybe would be passed by Peterson for the number one pick. So to me, that's my first reaction to that. Is there going to be any manipulation of the draft process or trying to, go to Utah? I don't think he'd be opposed to playing in Utah. I don't think that it would be one of those things. I just think it would be, it seems like it's been his goal for a very long time to hear his name first in the draft.
Kevin Reynolds joining us, Utah Jazz beat writer for the Salt Lake Tribune. You were the BYU writer. And you get to see a lot of stuff when you travel with the team and when you're there long before the game starts and all that. And I'm curious if you could look at some of the interactions that maybe you had a chance to see or some of the conversations you had when you're killing time before a game. How deep do you think the love affair runs between the Jazz and AJ? He's obviously very talented and he's obviously super likable. Can you tell to what level they have a real passion for this kid and his career and his potential?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something I probably need to really fully report out now as it gets very real, because obviously this was going to be, there was a real chance that the Jazz just got the sixth pick, and AJ's not even in the conversation. But, for everything, I mean, AJ, going back to when he was a high school senior and he was going to Utah prep, and during that process, I mean, he's been a Boston Celtics fan for a long time, but he's also been aware of Danny Ainge and the Ainges for a long time, and so they have that connection. And now it's obviously the Utah Jazz with Danny and Austin in the front office. At the time, it was only Danny. So I mean, there's just been a lot of weird for the Jazz and for BYU. There's been a lot of these weird connections with AJ and a lot of these weird touch points with AJ that have kind of continuously furnished this relationship and kept it going. I mean, even down to the NBA stuff with Kevin Young and Kevin Durant, who is AJ's favorite player? Who are the people that he looks up to? He's talking about Kevin Durant. Kevin Young happens to be the coach at BYU who coached Kevin Durant and Devin Booker and can get them on, FaceTime and talk to him about that. So there's always been these just weird connections that have always kind of brought the DeBonzas to BYU, to Utah Prep, to the NBA and having those connections with the Utah Jazz. So it's just been kind of, I don't want to say it's been this forced relationship, but it's almost been this, it always just keeps taking the next step forward. And also the Jazz have had a ton of chances to see AJ play because he's in Provo. Danny Ainge is front row at pretty much every single one of these BYU home games, right next to Brian Santiago, sitting right there watching AJ DeBonza play. Also, he broke Danny Ainge's record. These are a lot of things that the relationship is there. The BYU connection is there. But ultimately, I do feel like this decision for the Jazz, they're either going to have to force their way into getting AJ with a trade or something like that, or they're going to have Washington just not want to pick them. Like, I don't know how much this is really in their hands necessarily. If Washington is dead set on picking AJ, they do have the ability to do that now with the number 1 pick, and the Jazz have number 2. But I mean, the relationship has been there now for, this is going on a 3rd year of them having the best prospect in the world, either 4 hours or 1 hour away from the practice facility. So there's been plenty of time to develop that relationship.
Yeah, and plus they're going to move the practice facility down the south end. It's going to be closer to Provo. What you're saying, Kevin, is God wants AJ in a Jazz uniform. You don't want to say it, but I've got the seniority, so I'll say it, Kevin.
Well, yeah, you can say that. I can't get away with that now.
Wait another 30 years and you could say it too.
Kevin, you've just made a series of wise choices right there. I don't know. I'm really impressed with your brilliance.
Kevin knows me, and so he knows where I'm coming from. You got 6 weeks now. From a work perspective, what are you going to be doing to lead up to the draft? Because there's all sorts of possibilities for you.
Yeah, I mean, it starts now with the combine and talking to Boozer, Peterson, Wilson, and obviously AJ about are they meeting with Utah? Like, what do those meetings look like? And also, who are they as people and basketball players? I think that's stuff we're going to be looking into, because the Jazz have a ton of options here to take. Like, taking AJ off the table, let's just say that Washington takes him. You have 3 completely different players essentially that you could build around and see what you want to do. Do you want to add a Darren Peterson and add like this, in theory, really generational guard who can score? We've seen him when he's healthy score with the best of them, and that would, in my mind, make a lot of sense, because not just for the future, but also just in theory for what they're building right now. They have a ton of length. They have a ton of size. Walker Kessler, if they re-sign him, it goes Kessler, Markkanen, and Jaren Jackson Jr. But that guard line, adding another guard to help Keontae out, help Ace Bailey out, that would make a lot of sense just in terms of the next playoff push and whatever this iteration of the Jazz looks like. But you could also go the opposite route. You could almost have the, Cam Boozer, that would make some sense too, because he's playing, he gives you a little bit something different than what Walker Kessler and Lauri Markkanen and Jaren Jackson can do, even if he is, helping out in the front court. And also you have the connection. You have the Boozer connection with the Jazz, and Carlos Boozer playing for the Jazz, now working for the Jazz. That makes a lot of sense. And Caleb Wilson, we've all seen him when he played here in the Delta Center for that scrimmage. He reminds me a lot of AJ in a lot of ways, in some of the ways he plays the game and his length. And you could just have, in theory, you could have a huge lineup out there defensively if you have Ace and Keontae even, but also Kessler and Markkanen, and then Wilson, and then Jackson. So there's just so many ways they can take this, and I think that's the one thing that Austin Ainge said yesterday. One of the things is he said, getting a top 4 pick, even 2 or 4 or 3, or if it was 1, definitely changes the way they're going to approach this draft, and definitely is a big deal. If you land at 5, I think it's a much different thing. At 5, I think you're talking about Kingston Flemings and Keaton Wagler and a couple of other guys who, I'm not saying are bad players, but it's just a completely different ballgame in the top 4 in this draft. And the amount of ways you can mix and match this, I think, will be interesting. And I think it'll be up to the Jazz's preference in a lot of ways. But they said they want to take the best player at 2, the one, regardless of fit. So who is that, though? I think that's the next 6 weeks is right. Like, who is actually that player for them?
Kevin, we appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us. Good luck with the dozens of stories that you will be asked to write. People have all kinds of bright ideas, not realizing there's still only 24 hours in your day.
Well, I appreciate it. I'll do my best.
How about Kevin Reynolds winning the lottery? He didn't have to go through the 4 years of losing, and he gets on the beat now. Kevin, that's some smart thinking right there.
Yeah, February to now, I said, all right, I'm going to skip the rebuild. I'll just go to this.
Just walking into the Trib telling people how it's going to be. Good work, Kevin. Walk around like you own the place. What the heck?
Appreciate it, guys.
All right, there's Kevin Reynolds from the Salt Lake Tribune. Don't miss your chance to win big every week on the KSL Sports Zone. This week you can win a 5-pack of tickets to watch RSL take on the Colorado Rapids at America First Field Saturday night. Listen to the KSL Sports Zone all day Wednesday for your chance to win. The headlines are next.